Welcome to How to Build a Tent, the How to Make You Successful podcast. My name is Matt Williams. Thank you for listening or watching the show, and thank you especially for sharing the show with a friend, either if you're listening on iTunes or on the Facebook, on the YouTube, wherever you're listening. I appreciate in advance for sharing this episode. Just hit the share button just once. It won't hurt. Just try it. And I will tell you in a little bit why it is especially a thankful thing for me when you share the show. Before we get into that, we are part of the Fight, Laugh, Feast network. Over to fightlaughfeast.com. Put in HtBT in the memo field, just like you see in this mug, or hear me saying over your speakers. And you will get a mug for free, plus all of the great benefits that you get being part of our Fight, Laugh, Feast network. Most of all, you get to see shows of us go back and forth making fun of each other. No, I'm just kidding. Apparently Marcus is going to be coming out with a show critiquing my show, and I'm really scared about it. So make sure you check out that show, and then you'll see my rebuttal show too. No, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do a rebuttal show. We'll see. You get a bunch of benefits, and you are helping to support this network as we grow. I really appreciate you considering joining and putting HtBT in that memo field. Don't forget that for the sweet mug. You get all the other benefits that they offer too. It's not like you're going to be missing out or trading off just like car sales people do to you. You get the mug for free and all the other benefits on top of it. It's just such a great deal. So don't pass that up. If you want to reach out to me, contact me with any people you want me to interview, which some of you have. Thank you for that. If you want to have me discuss a certain topic or an article, and you want to send me an article or something that's in the news that you're not sure if I'm going to discuss, love to hear about it. I can't guarantee that I'll talk about it on the show, but I will definitely review it and give it a good thought about if I have anything worthwhile to say about it. And you can do that by sending it to me and by email, matt@howtobuildatent.com, or you can find me on the social media sites. Please give me a follow, How to Build a Tent. We are now on Minds, a very interesting new social platform. I'm also trying to get somebody from Minds to come on the show and explain it and talk about the differentiators between them and all the other networks. I'm really excited to have them on the show. And one of the reasons that I'm really excited to have Minds on the show and get to know more of their information and pass it on to you guys and just get to know how the platform works is because Facebook is censoring us, and Instagram. Now, me, your lovable host, as Rush Limbaugh calls himself, I'm a business show. We talk about how to make you successful. Why in the world would you want to censor me? I have no idea, but it's happening. And how do you know it's happening? Well, a few different reasons, but one of them is, a lot of you know, I interviewed an artist who has a pretty big social media following a few days ago. It was a great interview. I would recommend you checking it out. And she shared the show on her Instagram and Facebook, and she was so perplexed because she shared the show and she was getting no responses. She was getting no views. No one was seeing her post, and she couldn't figure out why. And she called me up and she's like, Matt, do you know if there's something wrong? Why can't I share the show, the interview that we had about my art, about my career? Why can't I share it on the social media sites? And it was like a new thing to her because she's an artist and not associated in any way with Christian conservative. I mean, she's just an artist. She doesn't talk about politics. She doesn't talk about that. She just posts her art. And so she is new to this whole censorship game. And it was just one of the confirming things to me about why, posts don't do as well as others do and things like that, because we have a really huge following on our podcast. And I'm so thankful for you guys. But I couldn't figure out, or I've been trying to figure out different ways to get around the system. But anyways, so one of the ways we can do that is by sharing the show. So if you would share this show right now and just kind of put a big, I don't know, I'm trying to keep it like PG here, but a big, forget about you, Facebook, I'm going to share anyways. So if you want to do that, share. I'd appreciate it. Add me to a story on Instagram. That would be helpful as well. And that is one of the reasons why I'm excited about having Minds and looking for other opportunities to share our content on platforms like that. There's a lot of different aspects to it that are going to be interesting. Thank you, Marcus, for sharing that and introducing me to that. And I look forward to learning more about it and spending some more time on there. And you can find me at How to Build a Tent on there as well. Another thing I saw in the news today, which was kind of remarkable, is doctors are starting, or I should say pharmaceutical companies are starting to test using software instead of medication for prescriptions, and having doctors start to prescribe software use over actual pills and medication. And I'm like, what? That doesn't make sense at all. And then I started to read this paragraph, and this company, and you're gonna have to forgive me, another one I'm not gonna be able to pronounce. I'm gonna gape this one. Sanofi is joining other big pharmaceutical companies in expanding beyond pills and injections into a new frontier of tech-based treatments that doctors can prescribe. Working with partners, Happify Health, the French drug maker, is studying a potential digital therapy. You heard that right. A digital therapy for patients with depression and multiple sclerosis. That follows the launch last year of a similar type of prescription treatment from Novartis AG and Pear Therapeutics Inc., aimed at substance abuse, the first of its kind to win U.S. Food and Drug Administration approval. And that's where I started to think, oh wow, this is actually like a thing, and it's not just an idea floating around, but they're actually doing clinical trials that's actually had some approval through the Drug Administration. And I just thought this was fantastic because, you know, there's a lot of side effects with drugs. I don't know if I've shared this on the show before, but I have a few friends that are scientists that do a lot of experiments with cancer patients at stage 4, so it's like the late-term cancer, where they're just desperate for any possible hope, and they are allowed to try things on them. And I've talked to them a lot about just drugs and things that you put in your body for that kind of thing, mostly drugs. And the funny thing about it is most medication that we take, they don't know why it does what it does to us. They have tested it, and they've noticed these are the most statistically common traits that happen, and sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad, and they can't really explain why it's happening. So that is why I'm not a big proponent of taking drugs as much as possible. But this software and having a way, I don't know if it's all video or maybe some audio, where it can create triggers to release chemicals in your brain instead of putting other chemicals in your brain that your native chemicals, for lack of a better word, so chemicals you produce yourself, will have a reaction to. Now, there could be some side effects still, but maybe they will be a lot less, and this could be a cool new corner. And if you think like, oh, this is so not gonna work, this is just hocus pocus or whatever, just think about it, is one of the things that tech companies are so good at is getting you to trigger dopamine in your brain by making those little push notifications, those red icons that show you when you have a notification. They are doing those things purposefully because it releases a chemical in your brain. And if they can start doing research and start developing tested, proven ways to create chemical reactions without adding other chemicals to your body, there's just a lot of opportunity there, and that seems like a really good thing. So I was really excited about that article. How cool would it be if we didn't have to take medicine anymore and a lot of different things? I think they're talking about, what was it, multiple sclerosis, depression. That one seems like an obvious one that could be a good test for this kind of thing. Another article I wanted to bring up to you is one from Microsoft. And the headline was, with a second WannaCry looming, if you remember that, there was a big, huge cyber attack that happened. I think it's the largest cyber attack that's ever happened and affected so many different computers. And they're warning, Microsoft is warning that more than half of industrial sites are vulnerable. And it said, Microsoft issued an urgent warning to users of older Windows systems to apply an update in order to protect against a potential widespread cyber attack. The company pushed out a patch for the high severity vulnerability that affects remote desktop services available in Windows 7, Windows Server 2008 R2, and Windows Server 2008. So if you have a company, if you own a company that has its own servers and are using these servers, if you want to pay special attention. The company also took the unusual step of porting the bug fix to Windows XP and Windows 2003. So these are like old systems, right? But some people still use them because they work for what they're doing and there's no need to spend money to upgrade. 2 operating systems that are otherwise no longer receiving support updates. And I bring that up because it really just gives me an opportunity to emphasize the importance of cyber security and to be making sure that your systems are not, to the best of your ability, being able to be hacked, that you are not allowing viruses into your system that can ruin your business. There'd be nothing more devastating if you have a business and you're putting so much time and money into it and you're being successful and you're starting to grow sales, you're starting to see a profit, and then some kind of an attack, some kind of security breach happens where you get sued or your systems stop working, your process breaks down. It seems like such a thing that is just a waste of money, like, oh, I don't need to worry about cybersecurity. But the more of a digital economy we become, the more important it is to have preventative action and to make sure that you are spending money to keep these things from happening. Another article that I saw was about Baltimore, and the city actually got hacked, and they have a big impact to the real estate market where homes weren't able to close in all of Baltimore because the city, the recording office, got hacked and they weren't able to verify the information if there's any liens on the property and a bunch of other information that is required for a home to sell. All of Baltimore was impacted because somebody hacked into Baltimore and got in there and disrupted things. And that is a perfect case, a good warning for us to remember that even though it might be a pain to worry about and some added cost, it's necessary. You don't want to put your business at risk. You don't want to put your employees and your customers at risk because you just didn't want to spend that extra money, that extra time in cybersecurity. So be aware, take it seriously, don't skip out on it, don't be cheap on it. There's often a lot of times when you're starting a business where you have to make trade-offs, where there's certain things where you just make sacrifices on. I would be very cautious about making sacrifices to information security, especially when you're protecting consumers' information, your customers' information. Be very aware of that. I was on Twitter earlier today. I was actually on Twitter a few times today. And I saw this ad by Verizon. I'll throw it up there for those who are watching. And the account is Verizon Policy. Verizon Wireless. And it says, a new poll shows Americans want Congress to pass national privacy legislation. And it says in the little meme, Congress, it's time to make privacy a priority. 83% of Americans support a new national privacy law. 69% believe Congress is not doing enough on privacy, and 86% believe America should be a leader on data protection. And I'm sorry, it was like in super fine print because I just printed it down on my notes. I'm not looking at it on the screen like you guys are. And I was thinking, like, why does a company that is in communications spending money, spending marketing time, marketing space, they could be advertising their products, they could be advertising their new phones that are coming out, their new offerings, their new product mix. They could be doing a whole host of things, building up their brand, but they are pushing a survey to get Congress, they are lobbying the American people to solicit Congress to pass legislation to enact privacy laws. Why would a company like that want to do it? Why do you think? It's an interesting thought, right? Why would a company spend their money? We all have limited resources. We all have opportunity costs. Why do they think it is a good investment for this company to get Congress to pass legislation which is further restrictions, further regulations on, I'm assuming, their industry? And this is something that I've talked about before, but it needs to be brought up again because we have a misconception about this in the American society. Big companies love regulations. Why? Because it creates a moat, it creates a barrier of entry, it creates protection for these companies that it can afford the lawyers, the extra process, the extra employees that it takes to comply with all of these regulations. And it uses the federal government to fend off startup companies and new entrants into the market because the barriers are too high, it's too costly to enter, and that the cost of entry plus the risk of starting a business will not be worth it. And so they're creating protection for themselves. There has to be a reason why a big company would spend money to get these regulations enacted, because it's going to cost them money too. So why are they lobbying for it? If they were so concerned about privacy in and of themselves, they don't need Congress to tell them what to do. They could do it themselves. They don't have Congress telling them how to run the business. They don't have Congress telling them which phones to sell and how to set up their stores. The people at Verizon are very smart, and so too are all the other companies that are doing it. Verizon isn't the only one. A lot of large companies have lobbyists. Now, I don't usually see them on Twitter like Verizon did, but they have lobbyists that are working behind the scenes, talking with lawmakers, writing their own laws to have passed where the lawmaker will just take it and introduce it. And the reason they like these regulations is because it protects them. It may cost them a little bit more money, but they would gladly pay the more money to comply with regulations in order to not compete with more entrants into the market, because the more competitors there are, the less margins that are going to be available to these companies. The less competition there is, the larger margins that they can have, because the price wars, the price competition, the pricing strategies are completely different. And I just wanted to take an opportunity to bring that up as well. If you see those around, you should say something funny on the tweets, like stop telling people, or stop having the government enact more regulations. As we've talked about before, one of the great things about what Trump's doing is removing regulations, and why we have such a strong economy. Even when the tariffs are like impacting our investments and maybe costing us a little bit more, the economy as a whole is in a really great spot. And a lot of the parts of that is not just the tax cuts, but the regulations that are being cut. I think, what was it, 17 to 1? For every new regulation, 17 are cut. That's absolutely amazing. The last thing I wanted to talk about in this show is that Trump declares a national emergency over threats against U.S. technology amid campaign against Huawei. Huawei, spelled a very interesting way, Huawei. Now, that's not English, and you would be right. That is not English. That is Chinese. That is a Chinese company. And you may have heard them in the news before, where they have been getting in trouble. The CTO, I believe it's a CTO, some high-level official in Canada is in trouble from Huawei, and they're trying to get her to be facing trial in America, and the Americans are leveling accusations against Huawei because the Chinese use Huawei to spy on Americans, and like their technology is banned and from government buildings, and government officials can't use Huawei things. And now it looks like they're trying to ban them altogether in the United States. And some of the bullet points are that President Donald Trump on Wednesday declared national emergency over threats against American technology. The move, done via executive order, is expected to precede a ban on the U.S. firms doing business with Chinese telecommunications company Huawei. The announcement comes as the U.S. and China remain locked in a trade dispute. One of the things that Huawei has is 5G technology. And so the first thing I thought of was, I need to go pick up some Qualcomm stock. Since I believe Qualcomm is the only chip producer of 5G technology that is produced in the United States. And if this trade war is going to continue to escalate, and there's going to be continued actions by the Trump campaign through executive orders and a national emergency, then I think that's probably going to favor Qualcomm. And so I just took a gander over to my investment portfolio and checked out that stock. You might want to do that as well. That is not investing advice. I'm just telling you what I did. Then I also kind of was interested in what it actually means to declare a national emergency. And there's a huge list of things that it means and a whole bunch of laws and regulations, which I am not going to bore you with on this show. The one of the perks about being a business show is we don't have to talk about all the laws and legal stuff that is just going to put us all to sleep. But again, this is just an extension of the trade war and another way that this is going to impact us. And one of the ways that we should be looking for opportunities. Maybe if you're looking for a career, Qualcomm might be hiring some more people and looking for some more management, because they might be getting a higher demand in stock. And then also there might be opportunities to create your own 5G chips, or to look for companies that are going to be rolling out that technology, and there might be some opportunities there. Always be taking these articles and be thinking about what are ways that I can look at this differently. How can I take advantage of this news, whether it's investing, a startup opportunity, a career move. Don't just look at an article and read it for what it's saying, but try to think of it in different layers and depth. And if you could just practice and get your mind trained to be doing that in a lot of different areas, you're going to be ahead of the game in a lot of ways, where people are just going to be reading articles and checking out. Maybe they think about it from a political perspective, but if you can think of it from a business perspective, an entrepreneurship perspective, an investment perspective, then you're going to be way ahead of the game. Now let's go out and be successful. God bless.